Okay, so we're gonna start with the next session for everyone who's interested in how we can channel resources at a larger scale into the regenerative economy, how we can focus and align processes and organizations and networks that are already there to basically really reach out or reach to a level that that then creates change that this planet needs, that our species needs, where we really don't have so much time anymore to work at small scale. I mean, I personally believe that the diversity of small projects that it's there, that we can see, that is represented here, is wonderful and is valuable and is amazing. But on the other hand, the processes that are just now destroying our planet and harming our societies and harming ourselves are just working at larger scales and have way more resources behind them. And so this is why I wanted to suggest, and this is a very early stage kind of discussion, I wanted to suggest to create an entity for which I picked the name Tealrock as a working title, as opposed to Blackrock, which is, well, the world's largest wealth management company, corporation, managing funds larger than most economies of countries in the world. And this I thought could be a power engine really to create the ecosystems that we actually need for all these organizations, all these networks, all these individual projects that are there, that are valuable, that are creative, and create an ecosystem that's really nurturing them and where people don't have to work under precarious conditions, have to kind of give up on their personal livelihoods just to be able to work on something which maybe doesn't pay them well. Rather, let's see how we can use all these resources out there to push the transformation. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in. And I wanted to outline just a few elements of the concept so far. I've been talking to a few people so far. I have a list of organizations, of networks that are already working towards this to some extent, in some way. But I'm really curious in finding more people who want to, first of all, review the draft of the white paper and maybe also contribute and maybe even at some point take a co-lead or really get involved. So this is really a call for joining in, making this happen with whatever you can and want to contribute. And as I said, it's a very, on the one hand, it's a really lofty, big scale concept and idea. On the other hand, I think we have to make it specific and concrete enough so that we can actually get going and quickly. Because just to finish this kind of introduction, what I've been observing over the last basically 10 years is that the situation hasn't changed at all. There are great projects with brilliant concepts, great visions, and there's a huge gap between the visions and the implementation because of a lack of resources. There might be other reasons for this gap, but I feel the resources are just going the wrong way. So now, because this is just a pitch, I'm just gonna give a three basic structural elements that I would envision for this, and then maybe do a little round if anyone has feedback or inputs. And then for anyone who's interested, I'd like to collect your contacts. Just setting together a mailing list and then let's keep this going and have a collective drafting process or review and drafting process, and also collect organizations and partners who could join this. Okay, so basically the core idea is to create a structure, and this could be a DAO. Not yet sure about this, I'm not an expert on DAOs. This could be a DAO which, on the one hand, issues, I now say a token that enables people to invest into the whole thing, but they invest into an ecosystem. They don't invest into a startup, they don't even invest into a specific industry. They invest into a new ecosystem that enables thousands and hundreds of thousands of projects, companies, startups to thrive. And this ecosystem basically consists of service providers. So this could be agencies, consultancies, software developers. This could be people encouraging people, helping people to work with discovering themselves. So it could be quite a variety of service providers, but they all help these initiatives, startups, companies to thrive. And together they create this ecosystem, which is to some extent separate to the existing markets and economy. On the other hand, it's really embedded also there. It's not like, I don't think it makes sense to create these kind of silo structures. We still have to work in the economies that we exist in, but we're connected through a couple of principles. And and the second structural aspect is that there will be a token that those service providers can receive from any organization that they work for. So to make it more specific, say I have a platform project to create an online marketplace for Berlin with delivery from local shops by cargo bikes. And we realized, okay, we have to reach out to quite a few people. We have consultancy challenges, we have marketing challenges, and we don't have the money to pay agencies to do this for us, and we don't have the money to employ hundreds of people to do this for us. So what we do now, we go to this ecosystem fund, to Tealrock. Tealrock says, okay, let's give you a go. We're gonna use our funds to pay those agencies to do work for you, and those agencies receive money from, like, at the moment it would be fiat money, from those, from the funds from the Tealrock entity, and at the same time you get tokens issued that are connected to this very project. So the service provider or the service providers are also getting, if you want, sweat equity from that project. And this double connection, that they actually get cash to function and to pay their bills, but at the same time they're also invested into the project that they support and consult and work with, creates a notion of ownership, hopefully. And at the same time, those who invest into this whole overall structure, they don't risk their money into the startup, which might be not well governed, which might have all kind of startup problems. Some founders who really go crazy about their visions and listen to no one. All these things they don't have to risk, because they only the money that they invest is channeled to these service providers who have already proven their competences, and they do this work, and they even invested themselves. So so it's a bit of creating a decentralized multi-service provider for startups, and this can, I mentioned startups now, but of course this could be also any company that wanted to scale, develop a new platform project, develop whatever, you know, like anyone who's working in this. Well, let's take as a connection the regenerative approach. Any of those companies, startups could apply and could then work with this network, this decentralized network of autonomous service providers. So this is one way I was thinking how we could conceive this. And that's not all, but that's what I wanted to present now. But the main point is also, it's not done. We need input, like let's make this happen together. Anyone who has ideas is asked to join. And yeah, and I'm also interested to get a little bit of feedback now. So if anyone wants to give some input, I'd be happy to give you a mic.
Okay. So
can you hold it close? Like,
hello. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So there's many things. There's many things in there. Even closer? Okay. Even closer. Hello. How do you think that the sort of economic model would work to bring in more capital? So, what makes people want to put in more capital to help? How do you get that? How do you think that would kick off well? Like, yeah. So a lot of the time with sort of a currency, it needs sort of like an economic model or like utility for like the token itself. How do you envision the token having utility beyond just being, I guess, part of the payment? Does that make sense or not really? Yeah.
Yeah. So because and this is just draft stage, but think of it like an ETF or like an index fund, where really Tealrock, if you invest into Tealrock, you automatically invest into any project any of the service providers connected is working with. So because, and this I actually didn't mention, it's on the one hand, the second token, which is issued to the service providers, one part of it also always contributes back into the main pool. So there's always any project that gets the service investment also then contributes from its success into the main pool. And again, there could be then dividends or some return on investment through that first token, which is there to invest into the whole Tealrock thing. So you invest into the ecosystem, and you get you can get a return from the progress of the ecosystem. That's the basic concept. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. The first is the word ecosystem. I think we need to start to be more precise in what we mean. And one of the reasons that the blockchain Web3 ecosystem is vulnerable is because it doesn't deal with any basic needs. We don't own electricity or food or cloud servers. So when people talk to me about these ecosystems of services, you're going to end up with a lot of the same problems that Circles UBI has, which is we have all non-essential services, and we're trying to swap with each other. Circles UBI has done a lot of work to talk with farmers and to try and get that, but the number of people in the network is too small for it to really be an ecosystem. And if you're starting from people who provide non-essential services like programming and writing and design services, what you've got is it's not going to help anybody pay the rent. It's not going to help anybody pay for their groceries. And so then it becomes a speculative network. And so that's the first thing, is to be precise about what you mean by ecosystem and why it's better than the ecosystem we're in, and can it actually sustain itself? Because if it can't, and it starts to be a threat, we know what happens, and they close down our cloud servers. Because that's just happening. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about this pool that we're all a part of and this ecosystem of services. So there have to be criteria for coming in and out of it. And if you come to this, for example, to this gathering, there are no criteria for joining. There was a bit of an application form and some money and whatever, but there's no way to know if you're a member of it and why you're a member. So if you want an ecosystem of services that people will use, then you're going to need some kind of rating system so I know who are the best and who are the worst. And so there has to be something like, why is this group a group that would allow me as a customer who wants to use the services in the network to understand this is the network I should go to, right? Not just because I'm a good person. And the hardest part of that is the people who are really good, there's no way they want to put their tokens in with the people who are good. And so those types of networks tend not to have the absolute most outstanding people, because the absolute most outstanding people make more money by not pooling their resources together. So it's a very difficult thing to do, to create a network like that that's actually superior to going out and getting on the open market.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, if you talk about the ecosystem, I was really referring to an ecosystem for regenerative companies, projects, organizations. So it's not an ecosystem for people. It's an ecosystem for organizations, for them to thrive and them to pay their people and give them services, like basic services, whatever. Like really, but this is like one level more. Like I see those companies, organizations suffering, and they're not able to live up their own internal visions of how they want to treat their teams.
Why? What's the source of that? Because I understand the problem. So what do you think is the source of their suffering and their difficulty?
Of course, there are many, and I don't feel like there's definitely no universal answer. But what I feel is, if we tap into this diversity of service providers who are experts in their specific fields, they can do better. And I mean, I know it from my projects, I know it from other projects that I consulted and saw. We're not experts on everything, but there are people who are pretty good at doing things, and oftentimes you can't afford paying them, and then they either do pro bono or you don't collaborate at all, and normally it just doesn't really match. And making this match happen, like these agencies would love to work for these projects, but their best work they do for corporations who just can pay them 10 times the amount. So this is the reason. And then the second point, or your second point about like how to define the pool and how to involve those people who are the best. Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is an unfinished concept. It's part of the challenge is definitely defining what qualifies any organization to participate, any people to participate, but mainly organizations. And I believe if this becomes a movement, a transformative movement, it will encourage a lot of people to take a lead in this. And if you have the skills to do it, yes, maybe you personally won't profit as much as if you just go individually, but I don't believe that everyone with a high skill level in a certain field is only about like maximizing their specific income. I think a lot of people are happy to use their skills to contribute to something really big happening. And we need this transition now. We need for me, the main motivation is really, we're too slow. Since 10 years, I'm working in this field, 15 almost, like if I consider my work before as an activist, and we're just moving way, way, way too slow. If we don't accelerate now, we just continue seeing what we see, like degeneration, and at a large scale. So that's why I feel let's get down to it and really channel the resources into the regenerative economy.
I have a ton more to say on that, but I think other people probably want to speak.
Be open, also critical.
I have a ton more to say on that, but you don't want to hear it.
You can also join on the stage.
If you're up for this debate, I'm up for it. But like, I don't want to take over your
because this was mostly a pitch, and I think we have like a few minutes left. But we could. How are people feeling? For me, the main point is really anyone who's interested. Just give me your contact, like email, and I'll keep you on the loop. There are already other people who are in the loop. There's already a bit of a network growing, and it's just a pitch for seeing if there are more people who feel this is the way to go. And I would love to have you, Grace, at least as a sparring partner.
So I think it's really important, right? Like, I came here because I love this title of this thing, like, how do we fund a large-scale network? And that's why I think it's important to understand, what do you mean by network and what do you mean by ecosystem? One of the things that's been problematic for us as an industry, like I said, is that we don't have our own resources in terms of our own electricity and our own food and our own whatever. But the other thing is that, and the corollary is we're 100% dependent on the existing default system. And so we use monetary tokens in order to interact with the system. Monetary tokens carry a certain language with them, and the language is the language of extraction. And if we really want to create a network, then I think we need to say, well, what's a network? And what are the threads that we want to communicate with one another? Because I don't want to communicate with anybody in this room like, you pay me, I'll give you something. I want to communicate with everybody in this room, what we have, we share. And money doesn't give that communication. Money gives the opposite communication. And that's why I feel like, and so a sensory network that would be a sharing network would be fundamentally different than a token-based network where we exchange for services, where we stake for services. And so I'm extremely interested conceptually in what you're talking about. And I think that what you're talking about is a patch on the money system instead of a rethinking of what is the communication that would come between you and me if I were to wish for your help or you were to wish for my help. And right now we're having an exchange that is a sharing exchange and all these people get to share in it and nobody's paying for it. And it's just like, okay, let's all try to think about this together. And it's by this form of communication that we're having, we're creating something that is more than what I'm saying and more than what you're saying. Like, it's so much more than a liquidity pool where there's a yield. Like, it's an expansion of the value in a way that money can't communicate. And that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think it does make sense to me. I just wanted to say, if we look at how things are right now, I have absolutely no opposition to create these wonderful, I call it not negatively, bubbles of a new world, of a new way of communicating, living together, sharing this world. It's beautiful, but it's like 7 or almost 8 years ago that on another conference I was on the stage and comparing this picture because someone was rating this picture. Yeah, we are like flowers breaking through the asphalt, through the road, and yeah, there are these flowers. But if then the forces that are right now controlling this planet come with a bulldozer and just in a minute destroy it all, or just shape reality for so many more people than we are able to shape reality for, then this just doesn't match. Then we need to, and in this we need to speak the language, I feel, of those forces for the moment. We need to enable people to pay their rent, pay their get a salary, pay for things in shops as they exist right now, participate in the economy as it is right now, because we can't expect everyone to transform completely from one minute to the other. So I think it's about enabling, through creating this ecosystem, enabling this new economy by really taking away the funds from the negative forces and using it to basically attract resources and people into the new economy.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And it's not a new economy if it uses the same market dynamics as the old economy. And so what I would like to do is to take these little bubbles and build a bubble around them where, okay, yeah, we trade with you with money. It's like if you go to one of those little flowers, right? Let's say you go to an eco-village. You'll find that within the eco-village, nobody is paying for their dinner, right? They come to dinner and they share. And they're not paying their rent necessarily, right? They share what they have. And it's not that somebody who makes more money gets a bigger room. They're sharing. But outside, they communicate with money. And so my question is, how do we take all these bubbles of little flowers and put a bigger bubble around them all? And yeah, we can use money with the outside world but within ourselves, we have a different form of communications. And I think that you're right, that these little flowers have gotten to the point where there's enough of them that we need to figure out what is the root network underneath that hopefully is invisible to those forces of evil, or whatever you want to call them. I'm happy to call them forces of evil or forces of inertia. And if we can create a root network underneath that is invisible to those other forces, and on top we still correspond in flowers. But I think that what you're talking about of this ecosystem network requires a different form which we haven't yet evolved.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time and listening, and hopefully connecting just now after. I think I'd love to have you on board for co-designing this. I'd love to also have more people on board, or if you know anyone who could be interested or relevant, please create some connections. I think let's move on from here. Let's be open. Nothing is defined yet, really, but the only thing that's defined for me is that I want to move quickly and make this happen and use what is there already to really be quick and, well, get this transition done. Cool. Thank you. Thanks for being here.